Join the conversation with Web Channel Politics in Color, powered by Bit Central, Globecast, Blakon Media, and Oza Group.
Convention here live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It is the final day of the Republicans' convention. Tonight we know that we will see former President Donald Trump on stage in prime time, reworking his speech to the American people. He has chosen his running mate, and his running mate took the stage for the first time last night, day 3, in prime time. It was the first time that America got to see him, America and the world, got to see the junior senator from Ohio take the stage and say what his plan is as Donald Trump's running mate.
Yeah, he came in. I think he did what he had to do. I don't know that I was all that excited. I think that the crowd had what we called before sort of a pro forma, yeah. Response to him. They gave him, I guess, what I might term adequate, an adequate reception.
Yes.
It wasn't less than adequate, but I mean it was enough. But I just didn't feel as if he wowed the audience in the way that you usually see the number 2 do when they receive their nomination. But I thought he did an acceptable job. No bells and whistles. So he did what he needed to do.
There was, I felt, more energy in the room last night than previous nights, but that's not saying a lot because my perception has been that the energy has been relatively flat. But some of that I would attribute to that they see this as a foregone conclusion. So there's not what you would think is the normal, we got to go out, we got to make this happen, we got to get this done, because in their minds, it's all over but the shouting. And we'll get to some of the later news, which may change some of that dynamic. And one more thing on that, I also wonder if the speech from Donald Trump Jr. had anything to do with lowering the energy, because that I can't even really call it a speech. I felt it was very poorly written. It was very, very poorly delivered. And if you were a conspiracy theorist, and I'm not trying to promote that idea, but if you were a conspiracy theorist thinking that the attempted assassination on Saturday was staged, in my opinion, that speech would validate your perceptions. Because the way it was used, it was horrible to me. And so I just wonder if you could hear crickets while Junior was talking. So I just wonder if that had anything to do to kind of dampen the energy.
And if you were I'm sorry, I was going to say if you were in the audience, you could only hear crickets through one ear because many of them had the pad over their ear. And so,
and in fact, we were in the audience. Politics of Color was on the floor for both of those speeches, Donald Trump Jr. as well as J.D. Vance. Going back to the non-energy. Yes. And I think what you were referring to was the night that he was actually nominated or announced to be the chosen pick. There was not a lot of energy then. But I will say last night he was well received, J.D. Vance. Oh, yeah. And I think he took it back to the Middle America story. And his mom was there, so he played heavily on family. That was their theme last night because the Trump family had the granddaughter speak. They had most of the grandkids there because Ivanka's not here and Barron, his son Barron's not here. But the Trump box was full of young Trumps, what they were calling the future. So they tied in the family. But what we didn't learn from J.D. Vance, because this is the first time to actually meet him, is anything about his policies. I was there on the floor, and his entire speech was about Donald Trump.
Yes.
A small moment about his family and what happened, coming from poverty, and his mom, drilled in on his mom being an addict for 10 years, and now she's 10 years free. But the rest of his speech was just about Donald Trump. And why is that? Because he's a junior senator from Ohio who's been in office less than 18 months.
And he's also the avenue to accessibility. Donald Trump has tried to make, and has been successfully, I should say, has successfully made contact with Middle America. But this is a guy who's really lived that. He's lived everything that Donald Trump has tried to connect with. So
Everything that he also has not.
yeah, that he also has not
Right.
lived. He legitimizes in some way. This is Donald Trump's first real legitimate connection with his base. Mike Pence wasn't that. And this guy actually lived the entire existence that Donald Trump tries to connect with and unify the party.
But did you feel that connection when he was speaking? Because outside of him saying, listing out the battleground states, which I did think was brilliant in terms of writing, they repeated that, I counted 5 times. The Michigan, the Wisconsins, they did the battleground states well, but did you learn anything else about who could possibly be number 2?
No, not at all. And
Don't tell us to go read the book, Hillbilly Elegy, or watch the movie. Tell us who you are.
And because that his background, his upbringing, his reality could have been a very good segue to tying his existence to policy. There was a huge void in that, but there's also been a huge void relative to policy discussion across the board. So you really come out, because this is all about I think you said this morning, it says it might have been Brian, a coronation. We are witnessing a coronation. We are not really experiencing the traditional party convention where you're used to seeing, battles in the policy room, in the plank room, before the election.
Well, the Trump administration has never been about policy.
Well, there you go, which is why you're not getting anything about policy now. So the platform committee, that's what I used to watch the platform committee meetings when they were televised. I know I need to get a life, but none of that now. So this is really what I have always dubbed as this is about the politics of personality. This is not about the politics of policy.
I also, last night on the stage, they brought out the veteran,
Yes.
and he was able to speak. And, Americans, we love our veterans. Hopefully everyone around the world does. He was able to speak. And what I thought was interesting from him is him saying that, Mr. Trump, if I were able right now, I would sign up for your military today. And the crowd just went nuts. And
that was probably one of the highlights of the night in terms of energy of the night.
Yeah, and you have to ask yourself, wow, that's, a man in his, late 80s, 90s, almost 90 years old, to say that unequivocally, with everything that has happened, with everything that he has seen from Donald Trump, who, by the way, is not a former military member.
Some, I think, have put him in the draft dodging category.
The exact opposite of a military member.
The exact opposite.
Yeah.
To see an American hero on stage and pledge his literal dying support, to me, was quite fascinating. And turning to my left and the right, and to see the cheers for that.
And it would have been, I would have welcomed the opportunity to have had a conversation with that man and asked him, you fought for an ideology in World War II in Korea that was very clear, it was very precise. When you look at the bases of the conflicts today, are you fighting for the same thing? I would have loved to have had that conversation with him.
One of the things that I'd noticed that we sort of alluded to a moment ago when I was talking about the ear thing is that they are really leaning in, even more now than they did towards the beginning. They're passionately leaning into the assassination attempt.
Oh yeah,
that's what they're running on. I read somewhere that Tucker Carlson at a speech somewhere following the shooting said, "Well, we've won." That we won just now, and more than ever, I think this party is leaning into that.
They're leaning into the heroism.
Yes.
The hero,
the fighter,
right?
Yes.
The fighter.
Right.
And
He got up off the ground and he raised his fist.
Yeah. And the fight has become their slogan now.
And so, to that point, that's where the family came in. That's where the granddaughter said, I could not believe that, my grandfather had been shot, or we were shocked as kids. And where, Laura Trump has said that she had to shield her kids from television and close their eyes and turn them away because their grandfather had been shot. And so the family, this is the family theme. And what does America love? We love our families.
But
so if you can pull the strings, the heartstrings of
yeah.
Americans based around family, which we all have, you are going to get the applause that was had last night.
But it was so flat. It was so almost disingenuous. Oh, he's my grandfather. He calls me while I'm in school.
Well, she said he calls to check on how my golf game is while she's in school. Not how's math. How's your golf game? How'd you tee off a 9?
I'm not mad at him about that. But
How's your golf game, Wilbur?
we'll talk about that. That's the next block we're going to do. It all seems so contrived. And let me ask you all this. I think that she was up there because was Melania was not. And to bring, if they had tried to bring in another grown female family member, that would have highlighted the fact that Melania was not there.
Well, they brought in Kim. Kim spoke, as she's the fiance of Donald Trump Jr. And then Laura Trump spoke.
Right, but they spoke before she did.
Correct.
So
yes,
she was the lead-in to her grandfather.
Right, because it's family.
Right.
And oh my God, we almost lost Dad. We almost to an assassin.
Right.
Which, by the way, they've not talked all week. And you and I kind of mentioned this. We can get into it all week. They've not talked some of the voter issues. They've talked a lot of immigration. Mm-hmm. A lot of immigration because that's Kamala's issue.
Right.
Those are their words. It's Kamala's issue. Mm-hmm. They've not talked abortion. Have we heard about abortion?
I don't think they want to talk about abortion.
Have we talked about? Have you heard them talk about gun violence? Even though that man somebody almost shot him.
Almost shot him in the head.
Right.
No.
Have we talked about Roe v. Wade? Have we heard about any of the
Zero
other issues
policy.
that are on the ballot? And here we are. That was day 3. Tonight is only about Donald Trump. There will be no more discussion about what's on the ballot. We haven't heard it.
Because on policy issues, on policy matters, their polling is mixed. They're not winning on policy all across the board. They certainly aren't winning on policy where abortion is concerned. And I wanted to touch on something before we left this that you mentioned just now about bringing in the daughter and about this whole theme of
family unity.
You and I had a conversation, Wilmer, and it was offline. I think we were traveling while we were chatting about this. And we were, and this was back when the president initially was shot.
The former president or the president?
The former president.
Okay, because Biden didn't get shot.
No, yeah, right.
He got a COVID shot, but he didn't get shot.
Very good.
Yeah, nicely done. I see that.
I'm here all week.
Kennedy. But we were back then, as political types tend to do, we started to try to forecast what the impact of that would be, and I offered that. We were trying to observe whether there'd be some sort of bump because he of the attempt, and one of the things that you said that I thought was a great observation was that on his own, and I'm paraphrasing, Trump isn't a naturally sympathetic figure.
Right.
If this, when you and I both were here when we're around when Reagan was, there was the assassination attempt against Reagan. And you take
back in 1981.
Yes, and you can take many people like us, who may not have agreed, even at that young age, with Reagan on policy matters, even, but stylistically,
Reagan actually had policy.
Right, but the point is that he lended himself to sympathy from people who weren't even, who were his political adversaries.
Your point to me in the conversation was, where is the sympathy for Donald Trump after this assassination attempt? And I said to you, it's going to be hard to find because he's not a sympathetic figure.
Right.
That's
right.
That's
and
how the
so,
conversation
and
went.
Unless you want to fly into Milwaukee and come to the convention.
Right.
Because this has been nothing but a give this man his flowers convention.
Sure.
Full of sympathy,
Oh, yeah.
full of empathy. I cannot believe someone tried to kill this man.
Yeah.
I'm voting for him.
And that the fact that the attempt was not successful means that this is ordained by God.
Correct.
That's another thing. That
Well, they said that last night.
Yeah,
it was
that
said
they're-
last
that
night.
they're- that they're-
God spared his life.
yeah.
He is our leader.
And there's something that is beneficial to the party for that. It's the same sort of thing that followed Obama around. Obama led sort of, his course to the presidency was almost divine in some ways. He had a speech at a convention.
Mm-hmm.
Then he runs for the state senate, and he runs for the Senate. The candidate that he runs against,
gets caught in a scandal.
Who was the favorite?
Right.
Yeah, gets caught in
yeah.
a scandal.
Mm-hmm.
And along the way he has these pitfalls which he's running against.
But it's not just. I mean, that's almost every election, because had Hillary done her job,
which she didn't.
Right? Because you could say
yeah.
that was kind of divine for Trump then. The fact the emails, the server, there's always something in a campaign.
What I hear you referencing is more good fortune.
Right,
Yes.
good
That's
fortune.
it.
Yeah.
That's
divine. They want you to believe that the clouds parted.
This is
the
ordained.
sun
Correct.
came down
Correct.
in the midst of night.
Yeah.
And there was a beam of light, and the hand came. I mean, all of that. I mean, that's why, to me, so much. I was on another network earlier, and I said, what you sense here is the cultish nature. And I said to the other host, I said, because he said, I'm getting ready to go over to the hall. I said, if they offer you Kool-Aid, do not drink it. Do not drink it if they offer you Kool-Aid. I mean, that's the sense that
Jim
I
Jones
get
reference never gets old.
but it's also very apropos.
Yeah.
In this.
So when I
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so just going back to last night, I also want your thoughts on his wife. J.D. Vance's wife, who is a woman of color. She's Southeast Asian descent, immigrants. Her family is immigrated here to America, which I don't know how many people knew that he had a woman of color as his wife until last night. But I thought her speech was, the fact that she's thrown into this, right? Because remember, they learned that he was going to be the pick 20 minutes before it was announced. So she didn't really have time to prepare. But I thought that her speech kind of was everyday. It wasn't boring. She was just a regular wife and mom, and I thought she hit some tone. People liked her. She's a very brown woman. I'm happy to see that she's a very brown woman. But I think she normalized him, right? Because the tone about
and
him
personalized
him,
Yes.
right? We were just this and that, and we were in law school, and then I had to deal with his issues of being in poverty and his family having issues, but we made it work. And so Americans then go, oh yeah, well, I had to put up with something too, and kind of normalized him.
She did so in a sort of Laura Bush sort of way.
Interesting.
The way Laura Bush
That's a great
lent
point.
legitimacy to George W. Bush. Always, hey, he's really a nice guy, and he reads more than you think. And he's a lot
y'all
hard-
stop playing.
One of the things that really stood out to me was the box.
Tomato. T-O. No, go ahead. No, don't mind me.
And it's tomato.
Tomato.
Let's call the whole thing off.
But the box, and Lil Marco was in the box.
Correct.
Marco
Rubio,
the governor
out of Florida, was in the box.
Of Virginia.
Yes.
Youngkin.
Glenn
yeah,
Youngkin
Youngkin
was in the box. Sitting
Yes.
right, in fact, sitting to Trump's left, I believe.
Yeah. His speech was interesting as well.
Was Youngkin. So there were a lot of tried and failed. That was a tried and failed crew that was in the box, and again, this to me adds so much to the cultish nature of this event.
And the Miss America-ish nature, the beauty pageant nature of this event, that's really what the VP selection process felt like. It felt very much like a beauty contest.
It felt like someone was asking you out on a date and didn't give you time to get ready.
Oh wow!
That's what that felt
Wow.
like.
And told you what to wear.
You calling me 20 minutes before? I don't think so.
Right.
But JD said okay.
Right.
They all kind of had
Well, they all
had their
okay.
gowns picked
They all-
out, or
they-
sorry, their
yeah.
tuxes or suits
And the
picked
Glenn
out.
Youngkin thing to me was very interesting because when he became the governor of Virginia, they then started labeling him as the next
The
up
heir-
and comer.
yeah,
he
the
was
heir
he
apparent.
was going to be the next guy. In fact, there were some that were talking about him for 2024.
Sure.
And then in the Virginia midterm, he lost the House and lost the Senate. And then people said, well, you're done, son. Your future is over in terms of the next rising star in the party. And
Which
so,
was also maybe a trickle-down effect, right, during that time, because they lost plenty of seats, which, I mean, maybe if we can transition to what's about to happen with the Democrats, I think the fear is there could be lots of seats lost.
Absolutely.
Down ballot if President Biden pushes back and decides to stay in this race. And I guess that's the next news of the day here that we're talking about here on Politics in Color, if we can transition to that, because that is quite prevalent.
Quite a
It's
story.
important. It's important news. President Biden got COVID. Okay, people get COVID. It's surging right now in many states across America. But what does that mean for the current president of the United States when we are literally just about 100 days away from election?
Well, Axios has reported today that their very close sources say that by Saturday, Joe Biden will no longer be in the race. That decision has been made.
And there's a process that needs to happen for that to happen, right?
There's a process that needs to happen. And one of the things that I found very interesting in this Axios piece, or there are a number of things, but they labeled Nancy Pelosi as being now I'm drawing a blank on the word they used, but she was the mastermind behind the Remove Biden campaign. I was very, very surprised that they labeled her that way, and that now he has faced so much pressure. So it's unrelenting, and it's overwhelming pressure to step aside. They talked about the Clinton side of the party. They talked about the Obama side of the party, and that they have stayed out of the public debate, but that their surrogates have been the ones that have been speaking for them, which is what we have been talking about for quite a while. And that I thought it was going to be tomorrow. I predicted last week that it was going to be tomorrow, but now they're talking about it's going to be Saturday.
My sources that I spoke with yesterday did say that there have been some conversations behind closed doors, which we knew this.
Right.
That's not new news. But what I found interesting is how divided the Democrats are on this behind closed doors. And when people get pushed to a limit, and whether they're up for a seat or they're pushing for other seats, those are the ones that are starting to come out to say publicly, breaking away from the party, to come out to say, I can't support this anymore.
But when
Like
Pelosi says
when
Pelosi says go, when Adam Schiff says go,
right? And yesterday was Adam Schiff, correct?
When the Clintons and the Bidens and the Obamas say go, and even Jeffries is on.
So Hakeem Jeffries, yes, he did have
I
a
don't
meeting.
know who's left left on his side.
Well,
so
Hakeem hasn't publicly said that
No.
he has pushed back, but there are.
But the
meetings
reports are that behind closed doors,
There are meetings.
those are the folks that have gone to him. Some, and as I said in the piece, some in very, very forceful language. Go.
Yeah, he's been much more subtle with his forward-facing message. But in many respects, we end the week at the Republican National Convention where we began the week, which is to say, I thought when we were entering this convention that we'd be talking about the other party and which moves it was going to make. That didn't happen because we were focused then on the assassination attempt, which enveloped everything else. And now here we are at the end, and we're talking about it as I think we expected we probably would.
And let me ask you.
And I'm not sure if we knew that on today, day 4, the final day of this RNC, that we would instead be looking at news on learning that the delay in vote to make Joe Biden the nominee has been forcefully enforced, right?
And so, what
Because-
do you think? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
What do you think now? Is this a mega game? Not mega, folks. Mega game changer. Is this a
Tip your waiters, everybody. Just go ahead.
Boomer, he'll be here all week.
Is this a significant game changer? And I think one of the indicators is that Donald Trump's sitting there rewriting his speech. But your thoughts?
Sorry, it's a 2-part question. The first one is what a game changer?
Is the developing realization that Joe Biden is stepping out of the race. Is that a serious game changer?
The
Go ahead.
developing storyline.
Yes. See, you're
no.
a journalist. I'm a political scientist, so
I-
you're being much more technical with your language, as you should be.
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's not a significant game changer. And as I was out with Republicans last night, I was out with Governor Abbott's wife and a couple of others, and they say, you just sit back. We're sitting back now and just letting the Democrats implode. Donald Trump doesn't need to do anything. So, yes, he's rewriting his speech to go back to family and unity and fight. But he doesn't need to do anything else. The Democrats are allowing him to just coast at this point.
Coast if you want to.
Yeah,
Right?
because
Because the country is also seeing how the Democrats are some are coming out and saying this and some are not saying that. It can be quite confusing at home.
I think that's a lot. That's a lot of hubris on its face.
Yes.
You know, I've been walking.
I'm speaking. That's how the Republicans are saying. Just let the Democrats implode.
I've been walking around here, and I hear the hushed tones and the whispers about this. This changes the entire race, and this reorganizes the way these folks here. These folks, and
Folks.
When I talk about these folks being the RNC. The energy that you've been talking about, while you were talking about that, I was thinking about the whole offering, asking for someone's hand in marriage. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of a performer way. I mean, we look and we see all these really cool videos on social media where they have all these lights and flowers and roses, but it's really a basic thing, right? You know, you get the ring, you kneel down.
Well, so
and
they've changed their messaging to include Vice President Harris in almost everything they say because they realize that if she is the one, they have to target her. And so most of their thing,
but I want to finish that point though.
I'm sorry.
Which is there's a process that you go through, and some people, as we've been seeing on social media, go through that process in a very elaborate way. Mm-hmm. And that's not what they really were doing here. They were going through the motions. They were going through the steps here because it was a foregone conclusion that we go through the convention, we have the coronation, and it's over. That's what this was before today. It's not that today anymore.
I agree with you 1,000%. And if they are sitting back now with that mindset that you just articulated, all I can tell them is never underestimate the blindness that attends arrogance. Yeah. Because by the time we get to the middle of August, towards the end of August, depending on if in fact Joe Biden does withdraw, B.
Well, they were supposed to nominate him in the next couple of days.
Mm.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, because they had moved it up to the 21st.
Right.
Well, they moved it from the 7th of August to the 21st of August. But I'm just talking about when you get to the middle of August, not the convention, but the middle of August.
I don't see him being a factor by the middle of August.
Who?
Joe Biden.
No, I'm saying whoever the Democratic nominee winds up being, it's a whole new ball game.